Welcome to this session, this workshop. We're going to talk about apologetics, but maybe with a different language. We're not going to go into the questions of God and the evil or the resurrection. We are going to do it from a different angle this time. I'm so honored to speak to you today. My name is Anne Solfrid Brennhovd. I live near Stavanger in the southwest of Norway. I'm a mother of 3 children from 10 to 15 years old, almost 16. I am a writer, a speaker. I've been co-writing a few books. And I edit the website Snakk om tro, talk about faith, where we provide resources in apologetics and popular culture. The name Damaris, you might have heard before. If you haven't, you will find it in Acts 17, where Paul is looking around, seeing what the people are, the idols, the people are worshipping, and trying to find points of contact and points of tension. And when he speaks, he points to Jesus. And then there's a lady. There are a few people starting to believe in Jesus, among them a lady named Damaris. So that's what we are trying to do, pointing to the idols that people are worshipping, trying to confirm what we can confirm from a Christian perspective, and then challenge some of the answers that will collide with Christian faith. Is it still important to quote the poets like Paul did in Acts 17? How do we do that today? Let's see if we can point to a few tools. So, are you trying to be relevant? This is the question I have gotten surprisingly many times. Or, so you're saying that you have to watch the latest movies to tell people about Jesus? Often are these questions said in a suspicious tone, implying that I'm looking for excuses to watch TV and never say no to anything, or watering down the gospel by talking more about the latest TV show than of repentance and salvation, or looking for Jesus figures in every story found on a screen, or all of them. And I unfortunately do some of these mistakes sometimes. But working with the stories told in our culture is not about selling the gospel cheap or being relevant in the sense of being fun, being relatable. It is about balancing between adapting and withdrawing as Christians. In the words of Daniel Strange, culture is the stories we tell that express meaning about the world. It is, of course, more than screens and books and music, but here the focus are going to be narrowed in on popular culture. And popular culture expresses meaning with a language that goes straight to the heart. And we need to listen and see if these stories are trustworthy. We need to be aware of our own spectacles we see the world through. So we need to quote the poets like Paul did. And we don't need to spend a lot of time reflecting on the ratio between screen time and Bible study. We all know the gap between it. Parents, teachers, pastors, youth workers are concerned about the stories young people are connecting to. There's hardly no need to be more worried. And at the same time, maybe we are not worried enough. Many people will relate to these stories as just entertainment. But it seems that many have been missing tools for meeting these stories and the underlying values. Walt Mueller, the founder of Center for Parent and Youth Understanding, gave me this picture of the screen as a pulpit when he said, there is a cultural narrative that is catechizing our kids. And the classical definition of catechesis is to instruct orally. And traditionally, catechesis in the Christian faith took place in the home and the church, with adults asking students a series of questions about the faith. Regularity and repetition were employed to make the instruction effective. Today, they are being catechized through regularity and repetition into a series of cultural beliefs that results in behaviors. When our children are day after day after day sitting in front of the screen relating to the same stories, it's the same thing happening. Luckily, we have more than just popular culture as worldview formation contributors. We have parents and schools and church. But if the screens are catechizing people, we need to look at what they are catechizing them to believe. We need to go under the surface. Daniel White Hodge puts it like this: it means doing the difficult work of finding God within the sacred, the profane, and the secular, and in turn developing a missional model of engagement, having the gospel at center for young people immersed in media. So many people are searching for answers to deep questions in the stories of popular culture rather than in God's story. But we need stories in order to make sense of our world and our lives. Folk tradition and official religion used to be the key provider of such stories. Now many stories are provided by popular culture. One of the girls we interviewed for a survey here in Norway for students said, I prefer watching movies and television series that I can relate to, especially when life is tough. So she was searching for meaning when life was hard in a fictional story. And stories are a great way to explore existential questions because you have nothing to lose. You can follow a train of thought as far as it may carry you. But tweens have often made lifelong decisions on faith before they are 12 years old. Do we have a choice in relating to the input they are getting as parents, as youth workers, as pastors? So then, what is cultural apologetics and how does it differ from traditional apologetics? You might say that the term in itself is rather new, even if apologetics always have had to connect to the culture. Ken Myers offers this definition of cultural apologetics. Traditional apologetics is concerned with making arguments to defend Christian truth claims, and it has often addressed challenges to Christian belief coming from philosophical and other more intellectual sources. The term cultural apologetics has been used to refer to systematic efforts to advance the plausibility of Christian claims in light of the messages communicated through dominant cultural institutions, including films, popular music, literature, art, and the mass media. We might add social media. Tim Keller uses the terms high apologetics and popular apologetics. Justin Ariel Bailey talks about uppercase apologetics that focuses on evidence for faith, and lowercase apologetics, approaches concerned with the questions being asked in our context so that Christianity becomes intelligible and plausible. Neither of them replaces or minimizes traditional apologetics. They go together. Both of these perspectives are important. Both operates on a scale from pre-evangelism to evangelism to disciple making. It's just as important for our kids growing up in the church to be equipped in meeting these stories to get answers to their difficult questions as it is for non-Christians. Some have criticized cultural apologetics for not answering the truth claims of Christianity. And to that we can say, yes, maybe sometimes. But there are something that the cultural apologetics can do. In relating to the stories, you can meet a story with a story. Sometimes that's more effective than with hard facts. And I find as a tool to build a bridge for the gospel, cultural apologetic gives so many possibilities. And not at least as a parent, helping my children to question the answers these stories are providing has given us so many openings to point out why Christianity is reasonable. Just a tiny bit here. Entertainment and popular culture is both reflecting the society and driving it. And there are so many examples. Support for same-sex marriage, which grew exponentially when Modern Family came in 2009. There has been research done on that. 27% of likely voters said that depictions of gay characters on TV made them more pro-gay marriage. I can use so many examples of how popular culture has changed society and our opinions. But the assumptions Keller is talking about in this quote affects our whole thinking. It affects how we read the Bible. That is just as important to realize for us when communicating the gospel as it is for us to know about those we are trying to reach. It's not just for those out there, it's important for us. We need to look at what spectacles we use. To be able to identify these values, we need to quit thinking that a story is just entertainment. It's never just entertainment. We need to practice how we meet these stories with our minds and with our hearts. And we need to meet them with respect for the art and with respect for a holy God. This model of 5 levels, you can use it, and here I've used the movie Soul, but you can use it on TikTok, on music lyrics, on TV shows and so on. When we meet a story, we often want to jump straight to assessing it ethically or from a theological point of view. But we need to back up, because our emotions will often lead us into a decision on how we rate a story. Our feelings are easily manipulated. Years and years and big budgets are spent on manipulating our emotions. We need to see how that affects us. And the feelings that are raised in us when relating to a story, both ethically, will have an effect on how we evaluate what is going on, both ethically and theologically. If we feel empathy with a character, it's harder to have a distance to the choices they are making. Just think about, if anyone has seen the movie Me Before You, how that movie changed so many people's attitude towards euthanasia. Because we felt for him, we felt for the beautiful Emilia Clarke and the handsome Cody Pledgick that wanted just to die. The aesthetics, they are leading our emotions. So we need to look at the aesthetics in a story. How are these colors moving us? The music, the lights, the angles, all of them uses our longings. They are playing on our longings for resolution, for hope, for reconciliations. So these 2 levels needs to be taken into consideration when we meet the story. And then we can go into the ethical. How do we feel about what is happening here, what the characters are doing? And then, why are they doing this? Are they natural? Is it naturalism we see, where humans are only flesh and blood? Is it existentialism, where there is no meaning, we have to create meaning? So there isn't an objective morality. That's why they are handling the situations how they do. And then we can go to meeting the story from a theological or a Christian perspective. We often go straight to the 5th level, what does the Bible say about this story? But we need to go through all of these 5 and practice before we are getting there, so that we are not fooled ourselves. We are going to have some time for some questions, but let's see. I think we have to go to a breakout room since we are so many people. So let's move forward. Just please share in the chat if you have questions for the Q&A, or if you have anything you want to share regarding the questions you just talked about. But what we just did with those 5 levels is building a bridge to the next tool, or more than a tool, it's a way of thinking and a way of living. Many of you might be familiar with the term double listening, and the theologian and author behind it, John Stott. Just let's look into it for a second. One time in the late 1960s, John Stott was being approached by someone who felt that Stott was not really addressing the concerns of the younger generation, and so encouraged him to engage more with the wider culture. Stott started going to the theater and cinema, practices he had initially renounced as worldly after his conversion. He was not just looking for illustrations for his sermons, as I suspect some of us often do, but he tried to understand and engage in the stories, their assumptions and their concerns. So, in his own words, double listening is the faculty of listening to 2 voices at the same time: the voice of God through scripture and the voices of men and women around us. These voices will often contradict one another, but our purpose in listening to them both is to discover how they relate to each other, and double listening is indispensable to Christian discipleship and Christian mission. And he expands on the double several times, the word and the world, the double refusal, the ancient and the modern, escapism and conformity, and so on. And double listening is not just for preparing a speech, it's a way of living. And the goal is bridge building, to show that the word is life itself, to connect the gospel to people's deepest longings, as we were talking about. But Stott knew humans. Double listening could have been dangerous for your faith if the double refusal wasn't equally as important. You will find the quote in the outline. We have to begin with a double refusal. We refuse to become either so absorbed in the word that we escape into it and fail to let it confront the world, or so absorbed in the world that we conform to it and fail to subject it to the judgment of the word. Escapism and conformity are opposite mistakes, but neither is a Christian option. And then we are back to the question I referred to in the beginning. So you're trying to be relevant? Yes, I am. I'm trying to be relevant, but not in the way of making a circus. I wish I had John Stott's way of wording the issue. I'm trying to be relevant when relating to popular culture because the stories are relevant in people's lives, but I try to do it with respect. Stott describes this as critical alertness, anxious to understand it, and resolved not necessarily to believe and obey it, but to sympathize with it and to seek grace to discover how the gospel relates to it. And that's a key word for me, to seek grace, both in when I meet the stories, to be respectful when I meet the stories, and to be respectful in the message. When I do this, I try to do the double listening. This is some of what I have found when I've been working with TV shows for children, for tweens. I have dozens of these key trends. These are some of them. Because What double listening teaches us is that in every cultural manifestation, there's always a point of contact with the true Christ for us to use to lovingly point others to him. This is the words of Daniel Strange, which has written a brilliant book on this. These four are I could have elaborated, just say one of them: fighting for a better world. This is speaking directly to the I generation, who is as socially conscious, if not more, than its generational predecessors. And the question is real for them. What can we do about evil? And from there, why does a good God allow evil to exist? For these characters in these shows, evil is definitely real. They suffer loneliness, they're abandoned by loved ones, they lose time, they lose years, they lose friends, they lose family, they lose hobbies, their spare time. I often think that these series talks more real about life than we ever do in church. But the problem of the evil in this series is never addressed. It just is. Where it comes from and the ultimate solution to evil is not. It just is. The question of evil is important even for young children. We know that the question of God and the evil is the main question that young people leaves the church for if they don't get good answers. And the TV shows, they are talking more truly about this than we are, but we can give a better story, a bigger story, a background, and a solution, not the least. We could have done this on all of this, on finding your inner hero, on talking about the relationship between faith and occupation and helping them to better understand the concept of calling. I hope this gives you a small insight in how you can use double listening in these kinds of series. Another tool which I find helpful is that in all of these stories, there are traces of worldviews. They may not be consistent, and there might be more than one in the same story or even at the same character. But just by watching the way of living, what's been said and done in the story, what is going on, we can identify underlying views of ethical values, of humanity, reality, faith, and then faith understood as trust and search for meaning. Values in these stories are often quite easy to identify. What seems to be important and essential, right and wrong, good and evil. And values can often be traced back to differences in the view of humanity, of human value, to the purpose of life and so on, which then again is closely knit to the underlying view of reality. Where do they find meaning and what do they trust? In science, in something spiritual, helpers from the past, themselves, the God of the Bible. And when we have done this train of thought, we have a better foundation for evaluating the answers these stories provide. Are they trustworthy? Are they reliable? And then it is time to see if we are answering the questions our culture are asking. For me, this was very helpful for understanding the iceberg. It might be the first time I caught the concept of the iceberg. Because friends, Tuesday nights, you better not disturb me. Those 27 minutes. This picture is from the pilot episode for Friends, the very first time we met Rachel Green. Rachel tries to tell her father, who wants her to marry for money and prestige, why she has called the wedding off. And that is over the surface what we are seeing. And what she's saying, it's like all my life, everybody keeps telling me that I'm a shoe. But what if I don't want to be a shoe anymore? Maybe I'm a purse or a hat. I don't want you to buy me a hat. I'm saying that I am a hat. It's a metaphor, Daddy. over the surface, she's saying she wants to start over, to live her own life. And value seems to be freedom to express herself, to choose. And for her father, money and a good name, and working to improve your status. But deeper down, the freedom to choose is about identity, to create yourself through the choosing and to be free to choose again tomorrow. What is my identity rooted in? And is it built on my value or on my appearance? It's not, in Friends, it's not something given to us. You have to create it. In that short exchange, Rachel was portraying a form of postmodernism. She was asking, how can I create a new me? And suddenly we had gone from over the surface and quite deep under the surface, just from this one quote. And just please post questions in the chat if this doesn't make sense to you, if I should elaborate on anything. But let's have a few more questions, but maybe we shouldn't do a breakout room. Maybe we should just do it together. But just take that last question with you. How can double listening benefit you in your position, in your state in life, or where you are, those you are meeting? We have to do a practical example here. This is I love Disney Pixar. They have so many levels, especially I love Pete Docter because he's so, he's spoken so much about how he wants to explore the questions of life in his movies. I'm not always agreeing in the solutions he chooses, in how he depicts Christian or biblical stories or images. But he does it, and he makes us talk, and he makes us think. And I'm so grateful for that. So normally I would have given, if this had been a group with lots of time, I would have given some context and background. All you are going to get now is that this is a teaser, not a trailer, kind of trailer, but more of a teaser for the movie Soul, which came out in 2020. And this teaser is from a few months before that. So you won't get all of the story, but you will get some glimpses, 2 minutes here. Oh, Soul. Is there anyone that picked up on anything you would like to share? Lyrics of songs in movies and TV shows are very often worthwhile spending time on. These lyrics, I don't know if you saw the man playing guitar in the train station. That's a depiction of a real artist called Cody Chestnut. He's the one singing. And he sings, though we are parting ways, we shall come around to touch our eyes again. Okay, what does that mean? Does it point to heaven, that we are going to see each other again? We can say amen to that if you are a believer. But then he continues, if love is the foundation, if the purpose be to recycle life, I promise I'll bring us to one. Recycle life, is that what he meant? That we shall come again? We will meet again in the next life here on earth. I'm not a big fan of how heaven is depicted in this movie. But at the same time, it says something about that there are something of more than just living. Some things are going to happen afterwards. But is this the solution? And even more confusing, he continues to sing, talking about love, God-given love. Over and over, talking about love, God-given love, God-given love, God-given love. Interesting. What does that mean? And talking about God in a Disney movie? Interesting. There are so many things we could have shared from this this clip, just start with we haven't even started at the top of those 5 levels with the emotions and the aesthetics. Just look at the colors. They are made to make you feel warm, to make you feel welcome, to celebrate the good, the relations. There are so many things we can confirm here. I just want to, the last thing I want to share with you is a college student that shared something regarding the scene where you see that leaf falling down. The Epiphany scene, it's called. The music is gorgeous. You can look it up on Spotify. And he says, as a depressed college kid who suffers with issues of loneliness, worthlessness, and overall sadness, I really needed this in my life. I feel like movies like Soul are the only things that understand what I'm going through. And I feel like this song sorry. Yeah. And I feel like this song is really emblematic of that. When I saw that silent montage of Joe playing the piano after looking at the things 22 has collected, recollecting that what's important in life is not some ridiculous goal you need to reach, but the small happy moments along the way that you share with yourself and loved ones, made me cry so hard. The meaning of life is that life is the meaning. It's to live our lives to its fullest. And I really need this more than ever. It's like Pete Doctor went up to me, gave me a hug, and told me everything is okay. This is how the stories affect people. How can we connect to this? Can we confirm some of it? Yes, we are supposed to be grateful. We can read in Ecclesiastes, how do you pronounce it? In chapter 3, that all gifts are given from God and we are supposed to enjoy them, but they are supposed to point to God. An apologetic argument there. The 5 levels of engagement, you will find them here if you want to write them down.